Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're totally demystifying the neural network operations of Claude. You know, when you use large language models, it's so easy to just see them as this mysterious magic box that somehow magically knows all the answers. But we're going right under the hood. We're transitioning your understanding from magic to mechanics, so you know exactly what's happening the second you hit send.
So here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll meet Claude and Anthropic. Second, we're diving into tokens and context windows. Third, we'll look at how Claude actually generates answers. And fourth, we'll wrap up with its limitations and hallucinations. Let's get right into it. Part 1. Meet Claude and Anthropic. Okay, so at its core, Claude is a transformer-based neural network, packed with literally hundreds of billions of parameters. And before it ever even sees a prompt from you, it has to learn language, reasoning, and, well, facts. It does this through pre-training on hundreds of billions of tokens. We're talking books, articles, code, scientific papers, websites, the whole shebang. It's literally like spending years reading every single library in the world before someone asks you your very first question. But Claude's creation goes way beyond just reading all that data. After absorbing that massive human text corpus in step 1, Anthropic applies something pretty unique in step 2, constitutional AI. This is basically a set of principles that guides Claude to be helpful, harmless, and honest. It actually lets the model critique and revise its own outputs against a written constitution of values. And then, finally, step 3 brings in RLHF, or reinforcement learning from human feedback. This is where human raters step in to evaluate the responses, and a reward model fine-tunes Claude so its outputs are consistently clearer and, better calibrated. All right, moving on to part 2, tokens and context windows. So the very first thing to wrap your head around is that the machine doesn't read words the way you and I do. It reads tokens. Text is immediately chopped up into these little chunks for processing. As a rule of thumb, one token equals roughly 3/4 of an English word. So a complex word like unbelievable, that actually costs you 3 tokens. And this is a super important point. Longer prompts consume more of your overall token budget, which simply means you have fewer tokens left over for the model's actual reply. Which brings us to this absolutely staggering number. Claude's context window, think of that as the active workspace for your conversation, can hold 200,000 tokens all at once. To put that into perspective, that's roughly 150,000 words. That is the equivalent of an entire 500-page book. That's the sheer volume of information Claude can juggle in its active memory for just a single prompt. And looking at how that stacks up against the competition, well, where GPT-4 offers a 128,000 token window, Claude steps up with that massive 200,000. And actually, if you're using the API, that extends to an unbelievable 1 million tokens. This gives you the breathing room to just paste in entire code bases, incredibly dense legal contracts, or even full novels. And the AI can reason across all of that data simultaneously. It's a real game changer. But we're not just talking about plain text here. Because Claude is multimodal, absolutely everything you send it becomes part of that giant 200,000 token context package. It processes your text, your entire conversation history, uploaded images, PDFs, spreadsheets, and even those unseen system prompts that operators set to give the bot its specific personality. Claude receives this whole package and pays attention to all of it simultaneously before it even formulates a single word in reply. Which leads us nicely into part 3, how Claude actually generates answers. So to actually generate a reply, Claude uses this incredible feature in its neural network called an attention mechanism. And what this does is allow it to relate any token in your prompt to any other token, no matter how far apart they are. So if you ask it to analyze a massive, sprawling document, Claude can coherently write a conclusion that ties directly back to a premise from 10,000 words earlier. It's exactly like being able to instantly cross-reference any sentence in a 500-page book while actively writing a brand new sentence. Now, because of these mechanics, Claude doesn't actually know things the way a human does. It's really just predicting the next most contextually appropriate token in a one-way stream. It generates sequentially from left to right, which is exactly why you see the text stream progressively into your browser. For really complex math or logic tasks, it uses a thinking budget to create an internal chain of reasoning first. But crucially, it generates code the exact same way it generates a poem. And because it's a forward stream, it literally cannot go back and edit a token once it's sent out. It is fully committed. Have you ever wondered why sometimes the model gives you incredibly precise answers, and other times it's beautifully creative? Well, Claude automatically samples its outputs from a probability distribution, and this is controlled by a setting called temperature. A low temperature means you get deterministic, precise answers, which is absolutely perfect for coding and logic. On the flip side, a high temperature allows for much more varied, creative outputs, which is ideal if you're doing creative writing. Claude actually tunes this automatically depending on what exactly you're asking it to do.
All right, on to part 4, limitations and hallucinations.
Because Claude generates text so fluently and conversationally, it is so easy to anthropomorphize the AI, right? You might be chatting with it for hours and just naturally assume it kind of knows you, which brings up a really common misconception. Does Claude actually remember your conversations? The stark reality here is that Claude suffers from complete amnesia between chats. Every single conversation starts totally fresh. It doesn't remember your name. It doesn't remember what you discussed last week. Plus, its knowledge of the world has a strict cutoff date. Currently, that's August 2025. It doesn't browse the live internet unless it's explicitly given a tool to do so, and it definitely does not continuously learn from you in real time. The model you see on your screen is completely static. The Claude you talk to today is the exact same Claude every other user on the planet is talking to. And because it's simply predicting the next token without any kind of internal fact checker, Claude, just like all large language models, can generate incredibly confident-sounding statements that are just entirely factually wrong. It can hallucinate. But interestingly, unlike some other models out there, Anthropic has explicitly trained Claude to express uncertainty. It's actually trained to say, "I don't know," and to flag when it might be incorrect. That definitely makes those hallucinations a little bit easier for us to spot. So considering all the mechanics we've just explored, the token prediction, the static nature of the model, the potential for those hallucinations, you must always verify specific facts, statistics, citations, and dates from an authoritative source. Use Claude to reason, use it to synthesize, use it to draft, but at the end of the day, you have to be your own final fact checker. We've seen today that your input is literally the only thing that shapes the reply. It's not the model learning or adapting to you over time. You get a completely blank slate every single time you open a chat, armed with a 200,000 token context window that can cross-reference 500 pages of data in an absolute instant. So my question to you is this. Now that you know exactly how the mechanics work under the hood, what context will you provide today to unlock its full potential?